June has a curious, social, and talkative vibe as the Sun and Mercury spend most of the month in Gemini and Venus and Mars travel through Leo. We want to be seen, we want to interact and get recognized. Let's take a closer look at the most important transits of the month and take them through all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, leave me a like or a comment. I really appreciate that. It encourages YouTube to show my videos to more people and encourages me to bring more content your way. Very deeply meaningful and appreciated. Before we dive in, wanted to let you know that you can become a subscriber on my website to receive personalized monthly horoscopes with unique insights tailored specifically to your natal chart, breaking down what's ahead for you. It goes extra in depth versus these horoscopes tend to be more rising sign based or sun sign based, depending on what you're listening to. Check out the link or visit my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Additionally, as we get into Saturn stationing retrograde in the sign of Pisces, you might want to check out some of my candles and oil creations. For example, Jupiter in Pisces could be a wonderful accompaniment for the more challenging Saturn in Pisces days, especially if you have any strong Pisces or Virgo placements, because Saturn will be aspecting and challenging those, as well as Gemini and Sagittarius. And as Venus gets closer and closer to the retrograde, I would highly recommend getting some of my Venus in Libra, I should have brought them closer to me, or Venus Kazemi candles and oils so that you can face the retrograde stage with more oomph and confidence and ability to handle whatever it might throw your way. So the beginning of the month, like the entire month, we have very strong action in Gemini, right? So the house of Gemini in your chart will be activated. The Sun is in Gemini until June 21st. Mercury is in Gemini between June 11th, June 26th. Mercury is in rulership in Gemini, so it's empowered. We talk faster, we have more interest. It's a great time for writing. It's a lovely time for self-expression. Venus is in Cancer early on. It's going to trine Neptune on June 2nd. So the beginning of the month has a dreamy, romantic, imaginative vibes. Venus trining Neptune could be a blessing for your creative projects, a blessing for your romantic or any kind of relationships that need mending and deeper understanding. We have a full moon in Sagittarius on June 3rd. It's going to be squaring Saturn and trining Mars. So square to Saturn feels like there's certain restrictions, delays, inner frustrations, conflicts with authorities that you may be facing. And as a result, you're deciding to make a change, right? Like there's a full moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is an inspired sign. It's a passionate sign. So you're driven by your passions, but the change you're making comes from the frustrating energy of the square to Saturn. What I like about this full moon on June 3rd is that it's going to trine Mars. So the square to Saturn is there, but the trine to Mars is the closest aspect and it's building. So you do have an ability to figure things out. Mars in Leo would want to kind of take courageous risks and assert itself and express itself. So there is that ability to problem solve. June 4th has electric breakthrough, good news, insights, innovation, maybe a chance to take an exciting exam or explore a unique opportunity. Your thinking is faster as Mercury conjoins Uranus. Very much lightning strike and a sense of understanding something. On the negative, there's a danger of accidents, technology malfunctioning, feeling overwhelmed, or sort of rushing into things and making careless mistakes. So it would do you good to double check your beautiful proposal for grammatical errors, for example, as you're sending an email to an executive. June 5th is a big day. Venus enters Leo for 4 months. It's a huge deal. I was sending texts to my Aries rising friend because for her it's the house of romance and creativity, and it's like exciting. Venus moves in 8-year cycles, and every 8 years it retrogrades in approximately the same spot. So for some of us, we will never have Venus retrograde in our sign in our lifetime, right? Like if you are an Aquarius, for example, Venus is currently retrograding in Capricorn, so it's not really going to switch into Aquarius. So Venus will be retrograding in Leo between July 22nd and September 3rd. In June, we get Venus in her regal state, being direct, moving forward. It's not always, it's not just fun and games. On June 5th, immediately it opposes Pluto. So it's going to make you look at the shadows of your ego. It's going to make you look at the shadows of your control issues or your stubbornness or your need for recognition or your need to have the last words, right? As I'm filming this, the moon is in Leo, activating the opposition to Pluto. And I literally had a moment this morning where I was like, I realized a way I could have won an argument from last night with my boyfriend. And I was like, I'm going to say it to him. But I'm sort of staying high-minded, wish me luck, and not following that need to be right or to have the last word, because it's not good for the sake of the relationship. So June 5th initially could be rough, right? 5th, 6th, as Venus opposes Pluto. You may struggle with control, power, obsession, manipulation in your relationships. Just keep in mind that the good of the relationship is more important than having the last word, for example. And Venus stays in Leo, like I said, for 4 months. So quite exciting. Also take a look back at May 20th to see what happened when Mars opposed Pluto, because now we have Venus opposing Pluto, and if you dealt with any conflicts and drama around that time, Venus can offer solutions actually, and maybe you still face the shadows, but now you're more able to move forward. June 9th has Mercury sextiling Neptune, great for soft, compassionate speech, writing, problem solving, making amends, very kind of sensitive understanding. June 11th is pretty big. Pluto retrogrades into Capricorn for the next 6 months until January 20th, 2024. So approximately 6 months. On the global scale, Pluto going back into the sign of tradition and rules will potentially see regulations tightening and things, kind of conservative action being taken. So we can see the results, let's say, in terms of AI or in terms of scientific development, in terms of politics, whatever it might be. On a personal level, it just means that we're not quite done with Pluto and Capricorn. We have a little bit more lessons to learn. You will feel it the strongest if you have planets or your ascendant in the later degrees between 27 and 29 degrees, Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, or Aries. Otherwise, you will still feel it, but less strongly. Mercury enters Gemini on June 11th until June 26th. We get 15 days of Mercury in quick Gemini, right? Talking fast, changing your mind all the time, multiple ideas, multiple projects. Try to harness this energy by brainstorming solutions to your problems, speaking out on social media, writing, and getting involved in trivia games, assembling puzzles. Just sort of take yourself out there and have fun. I love empowered Mercury. It's really great. Venus squares Jupiter on June 11th, so you're having a good time, but maybe overdoing it a little bit. Be mindful of that. June 15th, Mercury will square Saturn. And we had Sun squaring Saturn on May 28th. So this is a callback. This is part 2 of the same energy. Very positive transit technically for like serious thinking, working with papers, applying for things. It's going to likely feel maybe that you're swimming against the current, and it's more frustrating. So you may have to make some tough decisions and compromise. As is the rule with Saturn, stay patient, stay mindful, persevere, and stay dedicated in order to get through it. But look back at May 28th and see what lessons you've learned. On June 17th, Saturn goes retrograde until November 4th. Saturn retrograde is often a bit of an uncertain time in the construction side because Saturn always wants to build things. Let's say you are a Libra rising and Saturn is in your house of daily work. Maybe you've been gathering kind of items to create a product and you've been moving ahead, and now Saturn goes retrograde and you have to redo something, right? It's like the construction site, bricks don't get delivered, you have to problem solve and figure out new solutions. It could also be the time where you're facing, instead of facing obvious blocks, authority figures, people you know, you're facing yourself. You're facing fears, inner blocks, restrictions, etc. We have a new moon on June 18th. It's technically June 17th, 18th, the midnight of June 18th. So if you are on the West Coast, it's going to be June 17th. If you are in Europe or the East Coast, it's going to be East Coast of the US. It's going to be June 18th. So we have a new moon in Gemini squaring Neptune. New moon in Gemini, new beginnings in terms of your mind, ideas, thinking, self-expression. The square to Neptune is a bit more confusing, right? It might be a sense that you're acting out of confusion or you're acting out of desperation. I wouldn't rush to make big decisions. It might be a sense of you feel tired, you feel uninspired, and maybe the new moon sparks something in you, but it could also be a sign of kind of feeling uncertain about the direction to go into, and it would be best to take things slow and not rush into things. June 19th is a big transit. Jupiter will sextile Saturn. Give it a couple of days, maybe even a week before, a week after. Jupiter is growth, Saturn is restriction. Jupiter is optimism, Saturn is realism. So here you're growing, but you're being realistic. You are being slow and patient, and the more slow you are, the more grounded you are, the more likely you are to find success. So it's an interesting combination because these two are almost like two sides of the same coin, right? They both want you to succeed, but Saturn wants you to remember that success is fleeting and it's not the main thing and it requires time, and Jupiter wants you to succeed and just believe in yourself. So when they two come together, I think you're just more grounded and steady and perhaps practical in your approach, which brings you better results. June 21st, we have summer solstice, Sun enters Cancer, a shift in the year, energetical shift where we go from being interested in variety, we start to become more interested in quality, in connection, in familial, comfortable, warm relationships. Even projects that we build are those that feel close to heart, right? We may not move as quickly, we may take our time, we may operate from an emotional place, but the goal becomes to create more comfort, security, stability, and love. Mercury also sextiles Mars on June 21st, blessing you with decisive thinking, good time for negotiating, business dealings, intellectual work, and manual labor. June 25th may feel a bit confusing, and I would flag it as a bit challenging, and it's like June 25th into June 26th, because Mercury will first square Neptune, a sign of confusion, deception, uncertainty, lack of judgment. Your judgment is not as solid as it could be, and Mars squares Uranus at the same time. So it's like you lack in judgment, but your urge to take action is very strong. So it's the time that you really need to do not rush and do not make any reckless decisions. Be careful around this time. Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. We'll stay here until July 11th. Our thinking, our communication is a lot more colored by emotion. We may tell stories that have familial or personal significance, be a lot more nostalgic, and we value quality over quantity of information versus just jumping from topic to topic. You will want to nurture a topic, which could be a good way to slow down for someone born with Mercury in a quicker sign. June 28th is promising as Sun trines Saturn. We did have the Sun square Saturn on May 28th, so exactly a month after that, any delays, any frustrations you have encountered can be solved. Sun trining Saturn is a resolution potentially, or it's an answer. It's a door lights up in a maze and you know which direction to go in. Recognition is possible, solutions can come to you are more likely, and your judgment is more sound compared to the other dates in June, right? Like June 25th, 26th, or June 17th, 18th, when you're not as good with your judgment. And finally, on June 30th, Neptune goes retrograde. It will be retrograde until December 6th, making us examine and separate dreams from fiction. Neptune retrograde is very much which ones of your dreams are unrealistic, which ones are just fantasies, which ones of your habits are more distractive than helpful. Will be more important for those with planets between 24 and 28 degrees mutable signs, which is Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo. So let's talk about the signs. As mentioned, I am doing a more concise horoscopes. If you'd like to subscribe and receive a personal horoscope, you can check out my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. So for Aries rising, the Sun spends most of the month in Gemini, your third house. Mercury will be in your third house between June 11th until June 26th. The Sun is here until June 21st. So especially June 11th until June 26th, your mind is extra quick, extra fluid and flexible and adaptable. It could be a really great time to write, to study, to network, to learn new skills, to learn a new language, explore new ideas, go out there, interact with friends and neighbors, and just sort of put yourself out there and see what sparks your joy and what sparks your fancy. We have a full moon in Sagittarius on June 3rd, and it's ruled by Jupiter in your second house, squares Saturn in the 12th, trines Mars in the 5th. So Jupiter being in the second house, it just went into your second house in May, gonna stay for a full year. It's making you rethink your financial strategy as well as what's important to you in life. Jupiter in the second could mean that you're prioritizing peace, that you're prioritizing balance, that you're learning to take it slow and maybe not rush and sort of have like a better idea of better idea of yourself, but also just a more balanced, happy life, right? And that may involve financial changes as well as you pursue new projects. So full moon in the 9th house could be a sign of completing education, completing a writing project, completing a chapter of growth in your life. And that could mean a professional chapter, that could mean a personal chapter. It could also be the time when your beliefs are changing as you're starting to prioritize different things, right? With Jupiter being in your second house. There's a square to Saturn in the 12th, and trine to Mars in the 5th. So I wonder if part of this ideological change or inner change requires you to release something outdated, to release perhaps a tendency to people please or a tendency to focus on other people. With Saturn in the 12th house, addiction issues can come up in your life or in the life of people in your immediate environment. I was going to say in your life again. The mind of a Virgo, right? You say something and then your like inner critic kicks in and you're like, you have said it before, say something else. That's how my inner voice sounds. How does yours sound? Let me know. So it's an interesting both on a physical level, full moon, because it can bring a change in terms of studying, right? Like I said, graduation, or maybe you decide to go on a trip you've been planning, or maybe you publish a novel, or you feel kind of comfortable with sharing your knowledge with other people in some kind of physical writing form. And it could also be very much ideological, like a shift in your thinking. The trine to Mars in the 5th house feels to me like you do find a way to have more fun and find more abundance. It might also be just a sign that you are taking your knowledge or taking your experiences and feeling ready to explore them, to turn them into a source of income, to turn them into a regular passion project. Could be fun. And it's a completion of a cycle that would have started 6 months ago. So it could be nice to meditate on what have you been doing 6 months ago. Venus enters Leo, your 5th house, on June 5th. I don't know why it says July. June 5th. Venus enters Leo. We'll stay here for 4 months until October 8th. This is huge. This is exciting. It's 4 months of Venus in the house she rejoices in. She's in her joy in the 5th house. So you have more freedom to create. You feel more inspired. You feel more driven to explore different hobbies. Maybe you start dancing. Maybe you start sculpting or make pottery. You feel more driven to date. You know, you may like be better at attracting someone into your life right now. You might enjoy spending time with children. Pregnancy is possible as well. Mars actually has been here since May 20th, so you may already been feeling some of this energy, some of these sparks and fiery vibes. But Venus will definitely soften Mars and will make things less combative and more enjoyable, I would say. The retrograde, which we will talk about more next month, the retrograde can bring someone from the past back into your life or have you take a look at a creative project you put on a back burner. Pluto returns to Capricorn, your 10th house, on June 11th. So Pluto is still retrograde, goes back into the house of career for approximately 6 more months, making you rethink career matters. So we're still in that sense of like, what's important to you? What are you pursuing? Are you maybe ready to transform, release, let go, let an old part of you die, an old image of yourself that you're projecting? Maybe it's time to let that go. Saturn goes retrograde in your 12th house on June 17th. Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th. So the retrogrades will take us into November, December, and 12th house retrograde it could be about looking at your self-defeating tendencies, at your bad habits, and taking ownership of them. It could be literally the time when you can no longer hide from yourself that you're drinking too much, for example, and you have to address it. Or maybe someone in your life is drinking too much and you have to have a conversation with them. You can no longer close your eyes on it. 12th house deals with spiritual topics, healing, astrology, helping people who are vulnerable. So if you've been working on starting a spiritual business, for example, this could be the time when you have to take a step back and fix some things, rethink some things. And, you know, with Neptune being retrograde, it's very much what is real, what is not real. Between June 17th, 18th, we have a new moon in Gemini, your 3rd house. It squares Neptune in the 12th house, which to me feels like a chance to rethink how you communicate, a chance to rethink your relationships with siblings and neighbors, and maybe bring more clarity, right? Neptune being in the 12th house could be a sign of like something is self-defeating, something is outdated, there is some kind of influence that is not healthy that you're trying to let go. And the new moon in Gemini either brings like a change in the way you deal with the situation, or a new beginning, a business idea, a chance to take your fears, release them, and embrace new beginnings. Watch out for, you know, the square to Neptune immediately around June 17th, 18th, I wouldn't rush to make big decisions, but it's a good time to brainstorm and look at the things that are unhelpful or unhealthy in your life and think of letting those go. Finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 4th house, on June 21st, and Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. We'll stay here until July 11th. And you may be traveling to see your family. Maybe you are reconnecting with your parents, spending more time with them, having more get-togethers in the home, and feeling more nostalgic or more driven to connect with people who feel like home, as well as taking action in the home and maybe changing your immediate environment. Now, if you are a Taurus rising in the beginning of the month, actually most of the month, the Sun is in Gemini, your 2nd house, until June 21st. Mercury will be here between June 11th and 26th. So a lot of mental action in your house of finances and values, right? You may be starting a new business, you may be introducing a new kind of idea to your business, maybe you're hiring people, maybe you're changing your resources, starting a savings account, paying off a debt, right? Very, very kind of busy and a good time to actually make money from your intellectual ideas through the speech, right? Maybe you're giving a lecture, maybe you're starting a YouTube channel, maybe you're writing and kind of selling your work, right? It's very much, the mind is worth a lot right now. On June 3rd, we have a full moon in Sagittarius, your 8th house. It's ruled by Jupiter, fresh in your 1st house. So Jupiter has went into your 1st house in May, will stay here for a year. And it's a sign of you being ready to grow and take on a new beginning in your life, right? Like you're ready to, maybe you're starting a new business, maybe you're becoming a parent, maybe you are traveling or becoming a teacher, right? Jupiter in the 1st is very much like there is a conception of a new personality for you, and that personality is likely going to be involved with helping people and giving back or embracing a different role in your immediate environment, in society, whatever it might be. And then on June 3rd, we have this full moon coming through, and it's happening in your 8th house. And it's a sign that before you embrace this role, or in order to embrace that role, you have to pay off some kind of debt. And the debt can be physical, where you actually have to pay off a mortgage so that you can, move into your house and feel comfortable as a parent. Or maybe you have to have a conversation with a friend because this full moon also squares Saturn in the 11th house, and maybe you have to have a conversation and release a relationship or change a relationship, tell them that you want to go off on your own, right, and start your own business potentially. Could be the time when you're closing a professional chapter and you need to set the record straight with your boss. But definitely full moon in the 8th house and a square to Saturn in the 11th. I think you have this need for new beginnings, but Saturn in the 11th says that there's still work that needs to be done. There's still hurdles you have to overcome. And the full moon in the 8th is a sign that you are ready to take an honest look at the things you're transforming and actually, have the conversation, actually pay off a debt or schedule a therapy session and go through the transformation needed. There's a trine to Mars in the 4th house, so I wonder if this full moon is connected to your home family living situation. Maybe those are parts that you're transforming, either, introducing new beginnings in the family, or moving, or just rethinking who you are separate from the foundations of your life potentially. Venus enters Leo, your chart ruler. Venus goes into the sign of the Lion, your 4th house, on June 5th. My file says July. It's going to drive me nuts. I'm gonna have to change it every single time. So Venus enters Leo, your 4th house, on June 5th. Will stay here for 4 months. It's a big deal. Venus goes retrograde every 18 months. Venus goes retrograde in the same sign approximately every 8 years. So look back at the last 8 years ago, right? Would have been 2015. And think of what was happening in your house of home and family at the time. So Mars has been here, potentially encouraging you to take action in the home. Maybe you are renovating, maybe you are traveling to see the family, maybe you're getting your family together. There could have been, Mars went into Leo on May 20th. There could have been more contentment or drama in the home and with the family. And now that Venus comes in, she's going to smooth things over. Initially, on June 5th, she's going to oppose Pluto, so it's not immediately easy. But as she keeps moving, I think your familial relationships will improve. You will desire to beautify your home, maybe make it more cozy and maybe bright. Venus and Leo in the 4th house could also be the time when you start to show the outside world some of your home life. You know, start a reality TV series, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever your last name is, or just look for more opportunities to shine in the home, right? Which is something you might naturally do if you have Venus and Leo in your 4th house already. But yeah, good time to connect with family, good time to rethink your home and your immediate environment. When Venus goes retrograde next month, between July 22nd and September 3rd, you may find yourself maybe slowing down the renovation project or moving back to somewhere you once lived before, or traveling back to see family. There's going to be some kind of backwards momentum in a physical sense or in a spiritual sense, where you are revisiting past topics and healing old wounds. Pluto returns to Capricorn, your 9th house, on June 11th. For the next 6 months, Pluto will be in your 9th house once again, which is a sign that there's potentially some outdated beliefs or some ideas about your place in the world, about your knowledge, or about your guiding principles that need to be rethought and potentially released, right? Something that you have to take a close look at and perhaps let it go. Like, what's your true motivation? What are your guiding principles? What are you trying to accomplish, right? Because you could have gotten lost in the glitter of the goal, the glitter, the glamour of the position that you're pursuing potentially. But this is an opportunity to look into your psyche and ask yourself, what's truly important? What are you truly pursuing? Saturn will go retrograde in your 11th house on June 17th until November 4th. And Neptune will go retrograde on June 30th until December 6th. This is the retrogrades in your 11th house, making you face difficulties in friendships or difficulties in your community. Perhaps something doesn't feel aligned with you anymore. It could also be the time when you're examining your dreams and things you've been working towards, things you've been building, because the retrograde period tends to be the time when the structures we've been building feel less steady. So we are called to redo something, rebuild something, and maybe let a fantasy go, especially with Neptune being retrograde here starting June 30th. Between June 17th and 18th, we have a new moon in Gemini, your 2nd house. It's going to square Neptune in the 11th. So the square to Neptune feels like there's some kind of fog, uncertainty connected to the direction you're taking, the support of other people, the friendships, the networks you belong to. But as you get through this confusion, you are venturing on a path of perhaps finding more value within yourself. The new moon in the 2nd house could be very much building self-worth if you are separating from an old connection, or if you're closing a chapter in your life or completing a project, with the new moon in the second house, you're going off on your own, or you're feeling more comfortable expressing yourself. Maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're investing or making a big purchase, and definitely redefining what is important to you. And there might be some challenges, and maybe some people in your life will not approve of your actions, but it's not a reason to not do it. So do it. Finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your third house, on June 21st, and Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. So we'll stay here until July 11th. And Cancer is your third house, so this could be a time busy with education. Maybe you're connecting with neighbors, maybe you're writing, maybe you're feeling inspired to share your story. There might be more short trips, more ideas, and kind of more fun in the neighborhood. And if you want an in-depth personal horoscope based on your unique chart, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Gemini rising, the Sun spends most of the month until June 21st, and Mercury spends most of the month, or half of the month, in your first house, specifically between June 11th and 26th. And you are more visible. You are more willing to speak about yourself, more willing to express your ideas, take on the positions of leadership, and express your ideas, which could be very significant right now. And your goals, your ideals are more supported, and it's lovely actually to speak up and show your creative energy, right? Express it. We have a full moon on June 3rd in your 7th house. It's ruled by Jupiter in the 12th. So Jupiter just went into your 12th house on May 16th. Will stay here for a full year. And it's a sign that you're becoming more spiritually oriented. You're finding more joy in peace and focusing on mental health, imaginative work, creative work, and sort of projects that are more solitary potentially. My Gemini rising friend has just started kind of spiritual channel where she posts videos with like soothing, natural imagery and sounds. So very, I think, Jupiter in the 12th house vibes. As we get the full moon in Sagittarius on the in your 7th house on June 3rd, you may be completing a relationship chapter. You may be closing a partnership of some kind, moving a partnership to the next level. It doesn't have to be like a negative ending of a romance you're in, but it could be the time to change, right? I think as your goals shift towards more spiritual, restful, happy, calming vibes, so your relationships change. And it could be a positive sign, right? Like it could be the time where you enter partnerships that are more aligned with who you are, or it could be the time in which you are releasing those that are not aligned with you. There's a square to Saturn in the 10th and trine to Mars in the 3rd. So the changes you're going through can be inspired by some professional tensions. Perhaps you're facing kind of oppressing authority figures that you have to deal with, and your search for peace and spiritual happiness comes from that. But the Mars in the 3rd house to me feels like you have the ability to communicate, and you have the ideas and know-how that helps you get through it. So your mind is very Mars has entered Leo on May 20th, spends the full month in Leo. Venus enters Leo on June 5th, will stay here for 4 months. Your mind is on fire right now, literally, because your 3rd house is fiery Leo. But until June 5th, while it's only Mars here, you may just feel like go, 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 and kind of restless and have a lot of ideas. But then as Venus comes in, she could help you maybe sort through ideas that bring you more recognition, that help you express yourself better. It's the next 4 months could be a period where you create beauty through your communication, or you choose beauty. Maybe you do more blogging, maybe you do writing, maybe you start a new hobby and learn something fun, or start a YouTube channel, right? Venus can smooth relationships with siblings and neighbors, can encourage you to go out more and get more involved with your community. Maybe you meet some friends as you study something exciting. As Venus goes retrograde next month, we'll talk about it more in July, but you could be revisiting an old idea or traveling back to see a friend or sibling, and maybe needing to retake an exam or needing to rewrite an essay or redo some kind of project connected to your skills, hobbies, and business. Pluto retrogrades into your 8th house on June 11th. Goes back into Capricorn for the next 6 months. And there might be some financial topics, some kind of power dynamics in your life that needs to be addressed. If something doesn't feel fair, it could be the time to have honest conversations and maybe, start a savings account or talk to your partner about your financial strategy, with Pluto being back in your 8th house. Saturn goes retrograde in your 10th house on June 17th. Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th. So until November, December, we will have 2 planets retrograding in your house of career. And Saturn will make you question the structures you have built. Saturn has been direct, so you have been facing maybe authority figures, maybe you've been building something, researching it, and sort of dealing with outside boundaries and restrictions. Now that Saturn is retrograde here, you may have to face inner blocks, inner fears, inner limitations when it comes to your career. There might be a project you have started that needs to be redone, or something about work that you've been doing has to be done a different way, right? Let's say you had started a YouTube channel, but now you need to maybe rename it, or you need to redo some of the graphics, whatever it might be. And Neptune being retrograde here will make you look at some of your projects and examine which ones of them are long-lasting and have potential, which ones of them are not and need to be released. We have a wonderful new moon, except for the square to Neptune in Gemini, your 1st house, between June 17th, 18th. The square to Neptune in the house of career to me reads as frustration about work, maybe a sense of confusion and uncertainty, right? But the new moon in the 1st house is a sense of vitality and new beginnings and being ready to take action, maybe being ready to reinvent yourself. In the next 6 months, potentially you will go through a big change where you will no longer say, I work for this company, and say, I work for myself. That could be a possibility. Just do not rush to act. Kind of take things slower, potentially. Take it easy. And the Sun enters Cancer, your 2nd house, on June 21st. Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. We'll stay here until July 11th, making you potentially spend more money, but also make financial changes. Maybe you're starting a savings account, maybe you're paying off debts, or brainstorming new ways to increase your revenue stream. If you'd like a more in-depth look that involves your personal horoscope connected to your natal chart, you can become a subscriber on my website and get a horoscope subscription at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Those are sent out every month and give you unique tips and ideas on how to maximize the transits ahead. If you are a Cancer rising, most of the month until June 21st, the Sun stays in your 12th house. Mercury is also here between June 11th and 26th. And you are more introspective. You are more hidden. Maybe you seek more solitude and feel more productive when you're by yourself. You can also be ruminating some ideas or working on a project behind the scenes by yourself. So maybe there's something that's like needing attention that you're exploring. That will change later in the month when the Sun goes into Cancer on June 21st and Mercury goes into Cancer on June 26th. And that could be the period where you actually use the time you've been behind the scenes thinking of something or working on something, and after June 21st you'd be more willing to step into the light, speak up about your ideas, become a leader, become more visible. So the energy shift will happen later in the month. Could also be a great period to write, to journal, to pursue spiritual pursuits, and travel, because 12th house deals with travel. On June 3rd, we have a full moon in Sagittarius, your 6th house. Jupiter rules this full moon, and Jupiter has entered Taurus, your 11th house, which is a sign of you being ready to become more influential in your social environment. You are ready to expand your network. You're ready to meet new people, befriend new people, pursue new dreams, pursue new ideas. But the full moon on June 3rd is a sign that before you do that, you have to release something. It also squares Saturn in the 9th house, so it might be the time where you're examining your inner blocks, your inner doubts, or your closing chapter is dealing with education matters. Maybe you're dealing with travel matters that are sort of frustrating. And the full moon in the 6th house is a sign that you have to change your immediate environment. You have to change the way you treat your body, the way you treat yourself. To me, it feels like you almost like have to start to serve yourself, right? With the full moon in the 6th house and Jupiter being the ruler in the 11th house, like in order to get to where you're trying to go, you have to make a steady, solid plan that includes slow steps that are realistic, right? So full moon in the 6th house can definitely be the time when you're making changes to your health. Maybe you're ending a project, or you're leaving a job, right? There's a sense of like mental shift with Saturn in the 9th house, or maybe you're graduating, maybe you're kind of, if you had a couple of jobs and one of them involved teaching, this could be the time when you release the teaching job and pursue new horizons, right? Like new horizons that potentially offer you more freedom. Jupiter in the 11th would also want to spend more time with friends, or would want to be more involved. So perhaps the changes that you're making are also connected to opening up space physically and mentally to do the things you enjoy. Venus enters Leo, your 2nd house, on July 5th. Will stay here for 4 months, retrograding between July 22nd and September 3rd. Until now, Mars has been here starting May 20th, and Mars could have created some conflicts around money and values, or a sense of burning through cash, a sense of like maybe more ideas and more money coming in, but also more quicker turnaround with money going out, right? So as Venus goes here for 4 months, you're more likely to explore new money-making ideas. There's a chance that you'll take on a new job that deals with beauty, art, fashion, relationships, some kind of romantic vibes, right? Maybe you will start working in partnership with somebody else. Venus can very much do that. You may be getting more gifts, you may be spending more money. As Venus goes retrograde next month, which we'll talk about more in July, you may be needing to pay off some kind of debt. So be careful early on spending too much money, because as Venus goes retrograde, she might make you pay the money back, right? Might also be the time when you will have to be more mindful about how you spend the resources you have, or how you second house is also very much like a house of self-worth, right? And looking at the way you treat yourself or talk to yourself, and how that spills into your finances and into your professional life could be highly likely here, because those two are interconnected. Pluto returns to Capricorn, your 7th house, for the next 6 months on June 11th. And that is a sign that you will need to take another look at your relationships and your fears and your insecurities or your control issues connected to relationships. Pluto retrograding back here could be a sign that there is an old relationship knocking on your door, and a past partner who needs something from you that you need to take a deep look at and examine and potentially release. So you will feel it more if your ascendant is between 27, 29 degrees of Cancer, not necessarily a whole ton if it's early in the sign. Saturn retrogrades in your 9th house between June 17th and November 4th, and Neptune retrogrades here between June 30th and December 6th. Retrograde in the 9th house could bring a sense that you need to revisit your ideals, that you need to rethink your principles. Could also be the time if you've been investing in education or working towards becoming a teacher, that something you've been working on needs another approach, needs a different look. But it definitely could be connected to a writing project or a trip you're planning where you have to like take a step back and redo some of the work, or education matters, or even legal matters. If you're involved in some kind of legal battle, that can slow down and become more frustrating at this time. It's a good time to rethink your guiding principles and your ideals and separate your fantasies from reality, as Neptune is going retrograde here as well. And just kind of question what is real, what is worth your time, and what might be disruptive of your joy and happiness. We have a new moon in Gemini, your 12th house, on June 17th, 18th. It's the midnight Eastern time of June 18th. So depending on where you are, I think that's what I said. I thought I said when you are. So new moon in the 12th house squares Neptune in the 9th house. Once again, like a theme of education, travel, legal matters, beliefs, and ideals. And the new moon in the 9th house, as maybe you're sorting through what you believe in or what's important to you, the new moon in the 12th house could be a sign of like needing to release something, needing to make changes that bring more peace into your life. If you feel like the outside world becomes too overwhelming, how can you have a better nest or a better source of joy within? So it could be a sign of you exploring maybe yoga, meditation, maybe you're just discovering what makes you happy and what makes you feel peaceful. And if you'd like a personal horoscope, and if you want to know what's ahead for you based on your natal chart in June, you can become a subscriber on my website at anastasiadoesastrology.com to receive your written monthly horoscopes every month. If you are a Leo rising, the sun stays in Gemini, your 11th house, until June 21st, and Mercury is in your 11th house between June 11th and 26th. So approximately, like pretty much most of the month, but let's say the first 3 weeks of the month, your social life is busy. There might be more invitations, more get-togethers, you're going out more. You're brainstorming ideas, maybe you're partnering up with someone, or maybe even writing, with Mercury being here between June 11th and 26th. It's a great time to network, to reach out to people you know, to work with other people, to show your ideas on social media. You will potentially experience more good luck. We have a full moon in Sagittarius, your 5th house, on June 3rd. It's going to bring a completion or a change to a creative project, changes to your romantic relationship. If you are in one, it could be the time to either let it go if it doesn't align with who you are. What's interesting is this full moon is ruled by Jupiter in the 10th. Jupiter went into your 10th house on May 16th. For a full year, Jupiter will be in your 10th house, and it's urging you to grow professionally, to become more influential, become more inspirational, become more visible, right? It wants to slow and steady change the way the world sees you. And that could be at the time to take new projects. So the full moon in the 5th house could be the sign of you completing a project that is no longer aligned with your purpose, right? Jupiter is brand new. Maybe before that you've been focusing on traveling a lot more, and now it's the time to like hunker down and get in touch with what your heart desires. Could also be the time where you're releasing relationships that are not going anywhere. Jupiter in the 10th would want to prioritize long-term, stable, steady, reliable partnerships and relationships. And you might also experience changes connected to children. You may have to address have some uncomfortable conversations in the process because this full moon squares Saturn in the 8th house. Maybe talk about money, maybe talk about agreements you have with other people. You know, they give you this opportunity, but what do you have to pay back? So kind of questions around that could be important right now. Luckily, Mars is in your 1st house, blessing you with energy and problem-solving attitude, and so I think you have the power to get out of the challenging situation on top. Venus enters your 1st house on June 5th. It's gonna stay here for 4 months. So exciting. Venus in the house of self, in the house of appearance and physical body. You will embody that Venus. For the next 4 months, you have the chance to show up in a grander way, to be more charming, to be like assertive, because Mars is here the entire month, right? But at the same time, non-threatening. It's like you have a ton of passion. You have the energy that is sparkly and other people are drawn to. So great time for even dating or manifesting or, you know, presenting your ideas, changing your look. When Venus goes retrograde between July 22nd and September 3rd, you're more likely to need to examine your look or need to rethink some of your maybe beauty procedures, maybe even your brand if you have a business. So there might be kind of a sense of you're taking action, but then you have to take a look and examine what type of action you've been taking, or whether your demeanor and the way people perceive you is truly aligned with who you are. And it could literally be like the time to upgrade your skincare routine when Venus goes retrograde. Do not, we'll talk about it more, but do not make any drastic decisions when it comes to changing your appearance when Venus is retrograde. Pluto retrogrades back into Capricorn, your 6th house, on June 11th for the next 6 months. A sign that you may have to address your everyday life, examine your habits. Is there a bad habit that is destructive that you haven't kicked yet? Maybe it's the time to release something like that, right? It could be the time when you're addressing your professional relationships, your diet, your exercise routine, and decluttering or getting rid of something that is unhealthy and unsupportive, right? Like what kind of bad habit, what kind of time waster, what kind of professional tendency is sabotaging your growth and needs to be released. Saturn goes retrograde in your 8th house on June 17th until November 4th, and Neptune goes retrograde on June 30th until December 6th. So the retrograde begins in your 8th house. And 8th house is your dynamics with other people. It's your money, but the money you share with others and resources other people give you. So as Saturn goes retrograde, you may have to examine some of those unspoken things that come with the favors that other people give you, right? If they're like favors and there is certain like unspoken things, right? Like you have a friend give you a job offer, but then they expect you to babysit their child at any point of day and night, right? So it might be Saturn retrograding here. You're sort of looking at the shadow side, the fears, the struggles connected to money, connected to resources. Maybe in your partnership, right? We just had Mercury retrograde in my 8th house, and the amount of conversations we had about talking, fights about fighting or fights about communication is like, with my boyfriend, it's been a lot. So I feel like Saturn retrograding here and Neptune retrograding here, you sort of need to examine your dynamics with other people and see which ones of them are building you up versus which ones of them are holding you back. On June 17th, 18th, we have a new moon in Gemini, your 11th house. It squares Neptune in the 8th house. So you're still feeling foggy about your agreement with other people. You're feeling uncertain about all the details, but the new moon in the 11th is a sign of starting a new partnership, potentially. or starting a social media project, or meeting new friends, right? You're expanding, you're networking, you're bringing in resources, you're bringing in connections. It could be fun. It could literally be like a friend gives you an opportunity, or you start a podcast, or there's like a chance to go out there and like party with some fun person. But like the square to Neptune to me feels like read the fine print. Make sure you're not signing a contract or agreeing to something that will bind you in a very negative or challenging way that will be hard to get out of. And finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 12th house, on June 21st. Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th until July 11th. And this is the time when you tend to be more introspective, you're more driven to spend some time in solitude. Maybe you're traveling. It could be a lovely period to get away, to go somewhere else, or a really great period to work on something in solitude, to maybe do a writing project or brainstorm some ideas and lean into more spiritual pursuits. They can actually be quite enjoyable for you at this time. If you'd like a personal, detailed, written horoscope, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. And I write them before the 2nd of every month and send them to your email. And it's very helpful in terms of getting through the month, avoiding all of the, darker points and maximizing the better ones. For lovely Virgo risings, the Sun spends most of the month and Mercury enters your 10th house between June 11th and June 26th. So it's a very professionally busy time. You're getting to shine, you're getting to be more visible, maybe leading more and presenting your ideas. It's a really great time for writing and expressing yourself in communicative ways. So like any kind of blogging, YouTubing could be honored right now or rewarded. We have a full moon in Sagittarius, your 4th house, on June 3rd. It is ruled by Jupiter in the 9th. So Jupiter has entered your 9th house, the sign of Taurus, on May 16th. Will stay here for a full year. And Jupiter in the 9th house could urge you to travel, to expand your life, to expand your horizons, to rethink your beliefs and ideals, right? Maybe you're traveling already. Maybe you're encountering new cultures and new places. And so full moon in the 4th house could literally be the time you move. Could be the time you feel done with the place you've been living and ready to make a change, right? So moving, finishing a renovation project, releasing a childhood wound, or looking at, maybe you meet this wise Yoda type character who teaches you some insights about life and you are ready to close a chapter of your life. So what's interesting is this full moon squaring Saturn in the 7th house and trines Mars in the 12th. So it can come with some struggles and tensions related to relationships. So your change or your desire for change can maybe rub your partner off the wrong way, or maybe your partner is struggling to release something and you feel ready, and then you need to kind of look at your relationship through a more serious lens. The trine to Mars in the 12th to me feels like you're ready to, once again, you're ready to release something. You're ready to let something go. Venus enters Leo, your 12th house, on July 5th. Will stay here for 4 months. Could be lovely for exploring spiritual pursuits. It stays here for 4 months because it goes retrograde between July 22nd and September 3rd. Take a look back at 8 years ago, 2015. We had the same, Venus was retrograde in Leo as well. So this is the retrograde in the 12th house, but actually even before that, Venus in the 12th house could be great for spiritual pursuits. Maybe you are even imaginative pursuits. Venus in the 12th house could be great for like coming up with ideas for writing, and especially with Mercury in the 10th house, and exploring kind of new stories. It could be lovely for volunteering and traveling. It could be a sign of you dating a foreigner or meeting someone while traveling. On the negative, it could be a sign of self-defeating romantic tendencies, where you go for someone who makes you feel deep things but really is unhealthy for you. So it's important to keep your eye on the prize and stay kind of balanced here. When Venus goes retrograde, it can bring a need to revisit a past relationship or address a past wound, as well as to become more honest with yourself in terms of how you sabotage your relationships. If you do, hopefully you don't. But just, yeah, be mindful of like the tendency to go for people who are unavailable or toxic for you. Pluto retrogrades into Capricorn, your 5th house, on June 11th for the next 6 months, which could be a sign of needing to examine any hangups, any frustrations, frustrations and hangups connected to love or sex. Pluto retrograding into the 5th house could be a sign of like, you know, rethinking an old project or revisiting an old project. Maybe you've always had an idea to start a sex YouTube channel and now you decide to do it, which is actually one of my YouTube followers reached out to me mentioning that. So that could be interesting because like Pluto can be the darkness, but Pluto can also transform the darkness, right? So maybe shadows connected to love, children, creativity, but also a chance to go through them and kind of feel more empowered. And like make sure you're not trying to control your partners, your children too much. This could be a chance to examine and let that go. Saturn goes retrograde in your 7th house on June 17th, and Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th, which is a sign of taking a more serious look at your relationships. Saturn was direct. You could have been building something. It could be a romantic relationship or it could be a business partnership. You've been on the forward track, right? And then Saturn goes retrograde and there's a need to look at things seriously. And like if you're single, maybe it's friendship relationship or like any relationship that feels like almost like marriage, right? So needing to, especially with Neptune being retrograde here, needing to separate reality and long-term future from the fantasy or what you would like your relationship to be or what you would like your partner to be, sort of needing to take a serious look at them. On June 17th, 18th, we have a new moon in your house of career in Gemini, so new beginnings when it comes to professional life. It squares Neptune in the 7th, so once again, and please share with me how it shows up in your life, but like Neptune in the 7th could create a sense of confusion. Maybe you're already in a business partnership with someone, but you get this opportunity that feels a lot more exciting. Or maybe your romantic partner doesn't want you to do this job that you're getting offered. So Neptune in the 7th can definitely bring a sense of uncertainty when it comes to relationships or how your professional life will affect relationships. It could also be a sign that you are making choices out of that uncertainty. I would recommend that you don't kind of act out of desperation or, you know, just don't make harsh, rush decisions around this time. The Sun enters Cancer, your 11th house, on June 21st, and Mercury goes here on June 26th. And this is the time where you are more driven to nurture your friendships and spend more time with friendships. You may be collaborating with people, starting group projects, and expanding your network, but also potentially, you know, feeling more nostalgic for friendships that once were, or connecting with friends. If you'd like a personal horoscope and you want to understand what many of the other transits mean for you and what else is getting activated in your natal chart, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. And this way you will get a written horoscope every month. If you are a Libra rising, Jupiter spends the month in your 8th house, kind of focusing you on relationships, on business partnerships, maybe blessing your partner with new financial opportunities. The Sun is in Gemini, your 9th house, until June 21st. And Mercury will be in Gemini, which is the sign it rules, between June 11th and 26th. So there's a lot of action in your sector of travel, education, writing, publishing, and legal matters. And maybe you are traveling, maybe you are expanding, maybe you're taking on new hobbies and new projects, right? Like Mercury being here could be very much a sign of exploring new ideas, learning about new things, or even teaching others new things. It's like a lovely opportunity to become a teacher or become a guide, at least for a short period of time. Maybe you get an offer that involves speaking in front of people. We do have a full moon in Sagittarius, your third house, on June 3rd, and it's ruled by Jupiter in the 8th house. So like I said, Jupiter in the 8th house seeks freedom in relationships. It seeks freedom from dependencies, but also partnerships that bring more financial abundance. And the full moon in Sagittarius in the 3rd house, to me, reads as a need to rethink your communication, to rethink your immediate environment, your schedule, your relationships with neighbors and siblings, and perhaps let something go. Perhaps in order to bring a better balance in your life, you need to actually close a chapter. Maybe you need to narrow it down, right? Like full moon, the sun is in Gemini, you're like excited about all these different things, but the full moon is in the 3rd house, it squares Saturn in the 6th. So it's saying that maybe you feel burned out, maybe you feel overwhelmed. There's a lot of work with Saturn in the 6th. And the full moon in the 3rd house is really asking you which one of these projects, which ones, it could be a few, but which ones of them are worthy, which ones of them are long-term and can actually bring you happiness. So the full moon on June 3rd could be about rethinking the way you communicate, rethinking the way you do your everyday life, completing as kind of maybe you were taking a class, maybe you are making changes to your immediate environment, bringing in tools that make your work life more streamlined, but definitely some kind of change to your immediate environment in order to have more peace, I think. Venus enters Leo. Your chart ruler goes into Leo on July 5th. Leo is June 5th. I made a mistake in my notes, and it's like carried through all of the horoscopes I wrote. So Venus goes into Leo on June 5th for 4 months. It will be here until October 8th, retrograding in late July, August. So Venus in the 11th house is lovely. Until now, between May 20th and June 5th, you only had Mars there. And Mars is ambitious. Mars wants recognition. Mars wants visibility, but it can come across as more forceful. Maybe you've had these ideas, but you sort of pushed yourself too much, got irritated. That sounds so familiar. As a Libra rising, I resonate. If you do and you are a Libra rising, let me know. But yeah, Mars could have been like a sense of just like going too far, too fast. And Venus coming here will encourage you to just enjoy the process a little bit more. It will still want visibility. Venus in the 11th house could make you become more visible, to send more pictures to your friends, to film more stories, put them on social media, like, dress up more, go out more. It's lovely for presenting projects, for talking about love, because she wants to be seen. She wants to be loud and proud and bold. I'm so excited for this, like personally. Last time Venus was in Leo was when I was in France. And I totally I was feeling myself. I like Venus and Leo transits for sure. So a great time for working with other people, networking, brainstorming ideas, presenting your work on social media. You may see yourself dating a friend or starting a partnership with a friend around this time as well. When Venus goes retrograde, we'll talk about it more next month. It could be the time when you are rethinking a friendship, redoing some of the work, or revisiting the rules of the collaboration. Or also just if you're pursuing a creative project right now, it could stall a little bit, or you will need to figure out what makes you inspired, what keeps you going, what lights up the fire in your heart. Pluto retrogrades into Capricorn on June 11th for the next 6 months. This is your 4th house, and it will especially affect you if you have your ascendant between 27-29 degrees Libra. But in general, this is another round of transformation of your living situation, home and family. You may be rethinking your familial dynamics. Maybe it's another round to sort of shake off the cobwebs or look at the family's secrets. Something may come up. There might be some power struggles with family members that you need to examine and transform, because you've been on this journey of becoming more self-contained and more confident within yourself. But there is a couple more chapters, right? We have one now, and then we'll have one more in 2024, but you're almost done with it. So keep going, stay patient. Saturn goes retrograde in your 6th house on June 17th. Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th. So retrograde in the 6th house could be a sign of, Saturn has been here since March, right? Have you noticed more work? Have you noticed more health matters popping up? Maybe skincare. I just recently had some derm kind of burned up, some skin tags on my neck. So if it's there, that's what it is. But, I'm a Libra rising. So if you felt like there's more work, more kind of hurdles, more service to other people, Saturn going retrograde could be the time when maybe these projects slow down, right? And maybe you are being more thoughtful. Could also be the time when instead of facing outside hurdles, you're facing inner hurdles. So you have this deadline, but instead of working on it, you're sort of procrastinating and taking yourself down the wrong path. So definitely the time to revisit inner bad habits. Could be the time when a project you've been working on needs another look, or just work becomes more... It's interesting because it could definitely go either way. I can see it being more frustrating, but I can also see you just being like, well, it's frustrating, maybe I need a break. So maybe it's the time where you take a break from pushing extra hard. And Neptune going retrograde here will make you examine your projects for which ones are realistic and which ones are not so realistic. We have a new moon in Gemini, your 9th house, on June 17th, 18th. It's going to square Neptune in the 6th house. So it's very much you have a desire to grow. You have a desire to travel, to study, to teach, to write. But there is a square to Neptune, which is a sign that something at work, something in your daily life, at home, there is some kind of things you're doing, duties, helping other people, taking care of other people, mundane projects that are taking you away from it, they need to be addressed, they need to be examined, and the confusion needs to clear, right? It's not likely to be immediately obvious which path to take, but if you stay patient, you may see some answers later in the month or the year. But it's like a sense that you're definitely starting something, but it's not, it comes with like a need to maybe, set some dynamic free, or rethink some dynamic, or look very carefully at how you can find more time to do the things you enjoy doing. Finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 10th house, on June 21st, and Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. And it's your time to be professionally visible, to pursue projects that are close to heart, that you want to nurture, that you want to see through to the completion. It's the time to present your ideas, to be in charge, and to shine for sure more. It could also be a great time for writing or exploring, creating something that involves writing, speaking. And if you'd like a personal horoscope that looks at your natal chart and describes all of the transits that are personal to you and transits that are happening in the skies, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and you will receive monthly horoscopes at the start of every month. If you are a Scorpio rising, the Sun is in Gemini, your 8th house, until June 21st. Mercury is here between June 11th and 26th. So most of the month you have a lot of action in your 8th house, which is a sign that you are working with other people. You maybe are starting new partnerships and figuring out financial matters in your relationship. You may be paying off debt, debts. Maybe you are renegotiating agreements and dealing with shared resources. It could be the time when you're having more uncomfortable conversations and just being more honest. Mercury being here between June 11th and 26th is really great for coming to a solution that you wouldn't have understood or gained yourself. It's very much like the more you talk to other people, the more insights you receive in your psyche and into your relationship. So it could also be a very beautiful time for therapy. We have a full moon in Sagittarius on June 3rd. This brings a completion and change to your financial sector. It's ruled by Jupiter in the 7th. So Jupiter has just started a year in your 7th house, encouraging you to partner up, to date, to start a business, to find clients, to, reach out to people and ask them for help, or kind of collaborate with new teachers, gurus, mentors, like welcome new relationships into your life, right? And the full moon in the 2nd house could be either a sign of like closing a chapter of maybe just relying on yourself and being the only one who's responsible for your finances, because Jupiter in the 7th could be saying that like now it's the two of you, right? Now you have someone to help you, and maybe you need to start a joint bank account, for example. Or it could also be the time when you are rethinking your values, and something that used to be important to you in the past no longer feels important. There's a square to Saturn in the 5th house, which makes me wonder if there are some disagreements you're having when it comes to your baby. Could be an actual baby, could be disagreements connected to children, or any passion project, any project that you're kind of focusing on expressing yourself. So there might be some like hurdles or tensions or restrictions that you're facing in connection to that. And then the full moon in the 2nd house brings that to a head. So, you kind of resolve it, or you make a compromise. Maybe if your partner wants children and you don't want children, you either have an honest conversation and come to an agreement, or you change your mind, right? Maybe you decide that you want to have a child. But definitely feels like new beginnings in relationships, new beginnings connected to money, but also a need to sacrifice something. Saturn to me always feels like there's going to likely be a need to sacrifice something. The full moon is trining Mars in the 10th house, which is a sign of good luck when it comes to career, good luck when it comes to taking action, good luck when it comes to being a leader. So changes in partnerships that I think lead to better professional development, but require sacrifice, require financial changes. Could also be literally starting a business with someone and like needing to compromise on your desire for control for the sake of the project, right? For the sake of the union. Venus enters Leo, your house of career, on June 5th for 4 months until October 8th. This is exciting because Mars has been here from May 20th, will stay here the entire month of June, but Mars can be more combative. Mars can be like, this is what I want, this is my vision, what's the saying? I don't know, have it or leave it, basically. And Venus comes in, and Venus helps you be assertive professionally and start new projects, but sort of do it with a soft touch of the feminine Venusian energy. Could be a great time for dating someone at work as well, starting relationships, not just dating, but also partnering up. It could be the time when you're starting projects that you truly enjoy, you're prioritizing work that is more fun, and doing work that is Venusian, creative, romantic, beauty, fashion, counseling oriented, right? Anywhere where you get to work with other people and bring more beauty, bring more joy into their lives. Could also, like I said, bring new collaborations. And when Venus goes retrograde, we'll talk about it more next month, but the retrograde between July 22nd and September 3rd could be the time to revisit an old project, or maybe reapply for a job you once had. Pluto returns to Capricorn, your 3rd house, on June 11th for the next 6 months. And that could be a sign that you are still facing some challenging events, or you're still needing to rethink and transform your communication or your dynamics with siblings and neighbors. There might be something that you really need to discuss still, maybe some hidden, unprocessed feelings about siblings, or even, even things in your everyday life that you are doing that are unhealthy. But I feel like to me, it feels like more communication, like something else you need to express that is frustrating, that will be very empowering when you say it out loud. Saturn goes retrograde in your 5th house on June 17th, and Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th. So for the next 5-6 months, you'll be rethinking your creative pursuits, your romantic relationships, and the topics connected to children. And outer planets retrogrades do not work in such obvious ways. They usually just tend to make us a lot more introspective, right? Saturn in the 5th house, you're working on something, you're building something, you have a project that you're dedicated to. But then when Saturn goes retrograde, you start to question yourself. You start to maybe doubt things. You maybe need to re-envision things or revisit your choices, and there might be like inner resistance and inner frustration as you address it, as well as the need to take an honest look and ask yourself what is realistic, what is truly worth pursuing, and what is not. And that could be connected to your romantic relationship or creative self-expression or children. We have a new moon in Gemini between June 17th and 18th in your 8th house, squaring Neptune in the 5th house. So the square to Neptune in the 5th is still that confusion and fog connected to children, romance, and creativity. And the new moon in the 8th house is a sign of a new beginnings in terms of partnerships or shared finances or shared values. So a few ways this can play out, right? Maybe you are starting a partnership, but you are not quite sure about your agreement in terms of sharing responsibilities. Like, let's say you're starting a business and you're kind of diving into it, but you don't know who's going to be doing what. So be careful and kind of talk things out. There might also be a romantic uncertainty or romantic confusion when it comes to the future, when it comes to, like, you're sort of saying yes, you're sort of agreeing to what your partner wants. Maybe you're not, but maybe you are agreeing to what they want, but you don't fully feel it, right? Like they want to have a child and you say yes, but you don't know how it's going to affect your life. So don't rush to make any important decisions, and instead be strategic and thoughtful, because this new moon could also bring a chance to pay off a debt, to, get a mortgage or invest into something that is worth pursuing. Finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 9th house, on June 21st, and Mercury will be in Cancer between June 26th and July 11th. And this could be a great period to travel, to study, to explore outside of your comfort zone and do things that teach you something new and bring an exciting kind of outside world into your life. And if you'd like a personal horoscope, if you'd like to know what these and more transits, including personal transits, mean for you, including the tips and guides, how to avoid the more challenging downsides of the transits and helping you maximize the positive ones, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and receive your personal horoscopes every month. If you are a Sagittarius rising, the Sun and Mercury spend most of the month in your 7th house. Sun is here until June 21st. Mercury is here between June 11th and 26th. And this could be a very busy period in terms of dating. Mercury between June 11th and 26th is lovely for communication, really great for working with other people, coming up with ideas, problem solving, kind of, you're more driven to partner up and you're better at negotiating. We have a full moon in Sagittarius, your 1st house, on June 3rd. It's ruled by Jupiter in the 6th. So Jupiter has entered your 6th house on May 16th for a full year, encouraging you to revisit your habits, to take better care of your health, to bring more balance into your life, to take on projects that are maybe hard, but also projects that will bring more stability, right? Maybe you got excited about studying nutrition. So now that we get a full moon in your first house, that desire for balance urges you to transform something. Might be the time you kick a bad habit to the curb, or maybe you change your health, or you change your look. It feels like, to me, kind of healthy choices, healthy, happy choices that inspire change in your life. There is a square to Saturn in the 4th, so the choices you're making can be connected to your home, family, and living situation. Maybe you're saying no to someone. Maybe you're saying no to a family member who doesn't treat you well, or you're standing up for yourself. Like full moon could be very much about that. Or you're implementing a different dynamic in your family. It's trining Mars in the 9th, so to me that's a sign of your beliefs changing. Maybe like an example could be like you feel so stressed with your duties in the home that you end up quitting your job and choosing to study something you feel passionate about. Just something to think about. And if you're a Sag rising, let me know how this resonates and how you feel this will play in your life. Venus enters Leo, your 9th house, on June 5th for 4 months. It's a big deal. Venus goes retrograde in late July, September. And because she goes retrograde, she moves slower, and then she moves backwards, and then she moves forward again, spending 4 months in a sign. Until now, you only had Mars here, starting May 20th, and that could have inspired more ideological debates, more kind of friction when it comes to ideals, or even friction with teachers. Now that Venus goes in here, she will soften it, and she will help you get along with other people. She will encourage you to travel. She can even bring romance with a foreign companion. If you'd like to travel, I'm hosting an astrological retreat in Costa Rica in late September. It could be a lovely opportunity. But, you may be dating someone foreign. You may be dating a teacher or someone who's like a guru or guide, someone spiritual. You may be learning more about Venusian topics, sex, sexuality, or even like learning about astrology. It could be a beautiful kind of period to expand your life and expand your ideas. Pluto retrogrades back into your 2nd house of money and values on June 11th for the next 6 months, bringing a need to examine your relationship to money. But even more so, 2nd house has to do with your self-worth. So Pluto has been in your 2nd house since 2008. You've done a lot of growth, but now it retrogrades back, which is a sign that there's like a couple more final lessons, right? Final tests. So Pluto retrograding here could be a sign of like being ready to release a bad habit, being ready to rethink your finances. Pluto in the 2nd is also a lot of times a sign of professional transformation, which I think will align with Jupiter being in your 6th house. So Pluto retrograding here is to me a sign of like looking at your fears, looking at your desires, and thinking how you can release the fears in order to get closer to your desires. Saturn goes retrograde in your 4th house of home and family on June 17th. Neptune will retrograde here on June 30th. So Saturn has been in your 4th house, which is a sign of working and building something at home. Maybe you literally have been doing a renovation project. Maybe you've been building a better relationship with a family member. Maybe you've been just looking at what makes you comfortable and secure. And now that Saturn goes retrograde, it's gonna slow things down. So the project you've been working on may get delayed. The construction guys may lose all the equipment. I don't know how that would happen, but maybe they do. Family dynamics can sort of spiral back into an unhealthy place, calling you to rethink them. Neptune being retrograde here is also very much like, look at what's real and what's not real, what kind of tendencies you have or dreams you have that are not helpful and need to be released, right? Neptune in the 4th can be very much like saying yes to anything your parents want or anything your child once, and now you're looking at what would better serve you and your relationship. And also, like, if there are any changes you've been making to the home, or, you know, selling a home, buying a home, renovating a home, it could be like a time where you realize that maybe it's not realistic to have a walk-in closet in a one-bedroom apartment or in a studio apartment. Like, my apartment is the entire size of probably someone's walk-in closet. So could be, you know, interesting period. We have a new moon in your house of relationships between June 17th and 18th. It's going to square Neptune in the 4th. So the home, family, living situation still feels confusing. But there are new beginnings in the house of romance. So this could be interesting. The square to Neptune feels like maybe you feel uncertain about a relationship, but you're making a choice. Or maybe you feel uncertain about the living situation of yours and your partner, and that confusion is urging you to make a decision. Be kind of mindful of rushing, right? This new moon could be like a sign of moving in together or committing, getting married, but not knowing, not kind of feeling aligned or feeling uncomfortable or disagreeing about something important. So it could be great. Over the course of the next 6 months, you can definitely experience new beginnings when it comes to love and romance. But initially, I think there could be a sense of feeling uncertain. Finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 8th house, on June 21st, and Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. So the Sun and Mercury in the 8th house is the time to partner up with other people, start new projects, pay off debts. You can be better at brainstorming and coming up with solutions when you talk to other people. You may be more interested in talking therapy. So just kind of talking to your therapist a lot more, and also a great time to transform any of the bad patterns that are still present in your life and take a closer look at how they still impact your everyday life. If you'd like a personal look and if you'd like a written horoscope for every month, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, to receive your unique natal chart horoscopes for every month. They're detailed and they're accurate and they're helpful at navigating your life. If you are a Capricorn rising, the Sun spends most of the month in your 6th house of daily work, health, and service. And Mercury is here between June 11th and June 26th. So you're faster at problem solving, you have more ideas, you're communicating a lot more with people at work, and making changes to your health that are kind of healthy and happy. But you might get like really, really busy, and around June 3rd, we have a full moon in Sagittarius in your 12th house, calling you to release some of your unhealthy tendencies. And those could be potentially related to working too much, right? Jupiter has entered Taurus, your 5th house, on May 16th. For a full year, Jupiter in Taurus wants to have a good time. It's the most fertile time in your life. It happens approximately every 12 years, not like your entire life, but it's a very fertile time having Jupiter in the 5th house, especially in Taurus. It's the time to be more creative. It's the time to become a parent. It's the time to explore your passions and hobbies. So as Jupiter is in the 5th house, you get the full moon in the 12th, kind of asking you to look at how you spend your time. You know, what is unhealthy? What is outdated? What is stopping you from having that blissful and joyful life that Jupiter in Taurus so desires, right? So maybe you are releasing a bad habit. Maybe you are releasing an unhealthy tendency to talk down to yourself, or you're completing a spiritual project or imagination project, like a writing project. It's going to square Saturn in the 3rd house, so there might be some tension connected to siblings, neighbors, or communication. Maybe you feel, once again, it feels like maybe there's like deadlines, or maybe there's projects that you need to prioritize. So Saturn in the 3rd is not necessarily, it's not going to make things easy immediately, but it could definitely call you to streamline, right? And it's going to trine Mars in the 8th. So I think there might be some like financial resources or just resources and support of other people available to you, even if it's guidance of other people. So yeah, saying no, releasing bad habits, releasing people-pleasing tendencies and poor communication tendencies is likely here. Venus enters Leo, your 8th house, on June 5th, sorry. Venus will be here for 4 months because of its upcoming retrograde between July 22nd and September 3rd. And Venus in the 8th house will be very helpful when it comes to debts and taxes. You may get some kind of bonus, return on investment. You may get a chance to pay off a debt. There might be opportunities to work with other people, start collaborations that are focused on visibility and joy, and you're already by nature a very generous person, so maybe it's like a chance to show your generosity or a chance to shine and be visible for like the work that you do, or your opportunity to like the work that you do that transforms other people, or being known for your personal transformations. My Capricorn rising friend will be in a film festival at that time, so it could be very much about shining for her work. You can receive more gifts, and you can also see your partner's finances improving. It's also going to be easier, I think, to talk about challenging topics. The retrograde later in July, we'll talk about it more next month, could bring a need to pay off a debt that you forgotten about, or it may bring like a need to rethink your finances, rethink your agreements with other people if something feels unfair. Pluto returns to Capricorn, your 1st house, on June 11th for the next 6 months. You've been dealing with Pluto in Capricorn since 2008. You've gone through a lot of personal transformations. This is one of the 2 final hoorays. We have one more in 2024, but this is potentially a chance to look at your inner power, to look at your hang-ups, at your fears and your doubts, and maybe release some of them. You may encounter frustrating people and figures kind of testing you to see whether you are self-reliant and sturdy and steady in yourself, and kind of calling you to examine that power that is not oppressive yet inspirational. Saturn goes retrograde in your 3rd house on June 17th. Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th. This could be your time, like 3rd house deals with writing and business and skills and hobbies and communication. So when Saturn is retrograde here, you need to rethink those topics. Maybe communication feels more restrictive and needs more kind of pushing through. Maybe your writing project gets a lot of notes and you sort of have to take a step back and reconsider. Maybe like you are rebranding your business, redoing kind of your blog or whatever it might be. And with Neptune retrograde here, I think it's also very much about like separating fantasy and dreams from reality and things you can actually achieve. We have a new moon in Gemini between June 17th, 18th. This is your 6th house. It's going to square Neptune in the 3rd house. So once again, Neptune in the 3rd feels like fog of confusion when it comes to your everyday life, communication, writing projects. A new moon in the 6th house is urging you to make choices that are healthy for you, urging you to prioritize things that are important, things that are more clear potentially, and maybe like making better decisions. Like Neptune in the 3rd house can literally be spreading yourself too thin, saying yes to too many things, and really needing to redefine that or release some of your commitments and kind of bring more clarity into your everyday life and the things you say yes to. And finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 7th house, on June 21st. Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. Until July 11th, you get a month of Cancer season of a lot of action in your house of romantic and business partnerships. And it could be a great time to date, to reach out to people you can partner up with, to do business negotiations, sign contracts, and forward all of your relationships. If you'd like a personal look at your June horoscope, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadasastrology.com. and receive monthly horoscopes written down, emailed to you at the beginning of every month that can help guide you through the energies of the transits ahead. If you are an Aqua rising, the Sun spends most of the month until June 21st, and Mercury spends 2 weeks between June 11th and 26th in your 5th house. And you are looking for fun. You're looking for inspiration. You may be dating, maybe you're creating, maybe you're spending more time with kids. Like, kids can be a great source of joy around this time. Your dating life could be faster. Maybe you're playing more games, doing trivia, whatever it might be. But very much kind of fun. Around June 3rd, we have a full moon in Sagittarius, which is your 11th house, which actually makes you zoom out and look at your friendships, at your dreams, and at your role in the collective. And the full moon here could bring change to that, right? It could bring maybe a need to release a friendship, or maybe a need to close a project. Maybe you are rethinking your dreams. This full moon is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter just went into Taurus, your 4th house, on May 16th. Will be here for an entire year, encouraging you to grow at home, right? It could very much be about starting a business at home, or like starting a real estate project, a real estate side business, right? Or creating your family tree or something like that. But like Jupiter in the 4th will make you seek more familial relationship, will make you want to expand your home and just spend more time in the home potentially. So this full moon in Sagittarius, I feel like, is your need to examine friendships that don't feel familiar and homey and comfortable. Maybe release them or have honest conversations. Maybe complete projects that are taking you away from family, if that is what's priority to you right now. And maybe rethink your dreams and people you surround yourself mainly. There's a square to Saturn in the 2nd house, so your resources might be restricted at the time. And there's a trine to Mars in the 7th. So while the resources might be restrictive, there is support from relationships and partnerships, so it's not all challenging. But I think it's definitely the time in which you are examining how you're spending money, examining your values, and making choices that are more safe and happy and secure, because Jupiter in Taurus ruling this full moon will definitely want to have more peace and have like a better work-life balance. Venus enters Leo, your 7th house, on June 5th for 4 months. 4 months. Venus has 8-year-long cycles. It retrogrades approximately every 18 months, but every 8 years she comes back to the same sign-ish. There's a few degree difference, but you can take a look at what was happening in your life 8 years ago. Venus joins Mars in your 5th house. Mars entered your 5th on May 20th, and it was making tough aspects. It was opposing Pluto, squaring Jupiter. Let me know if you've dealt with any tensions related to relationships and home family, or even your personal goals. If you have, Venus coming in should help smooth things over. It may initially be tough, especially around June 5th, because Venus opposes Pluto immediately. But I think she does have more kind of power to help us get along. So Venus in the 7th house could be a great time for dating, partnering up, starting a business, reaching out to clients, signing contracts, negotiating. You have more charm, more power to attract, more ability to choose peace over fighting, right? You might already be that person, but I think Venus will make it even easier. And then when Venus goes retrograde, which is more on that in the next video, next month, it could definitely bring someone from the past back into your life, or past conflicts, or past clients, or past business partners that maybe had good potential, but you didn't get to explore fully. Pluto retrogrades into Capricorn, your 12th house, on June 11th for the next 6 months, making you take another close look at your mental health and prioritize healing, There might be some past tendencies that bring you another visit, some kind of self-sabotaging tendencies, bad habits that need another look, or even a past wound that needs more time in therapy potentially in order to, be transformed. Saturn goes retrograde in your second house of money and values on June 17th, and Neptune retrogrades here on June 30th. So for the next 5-6 months, you're going to be going through like a deeper, less visible rewiring of your finances and your values. Saturn, retrograding in the second house could be the time where you've been working on something, you've been building something, maybe it's a new business, it's a new source of income, and now it's retrograde and you need to redo some of the work you've done, or you need to reallocate some of the finances or pay off some kind of debt, and maybe the progress feels slower. I would urge you to use this period of time to reconnect. Second house means values as well, and confidence in self, to like reconnect with your goals and what's behind the financial topics, right? Like if finances feel confusing, uncertain, unsteady right now, get in touch with that inner mission, with that desire nature, and, go from there, operate from there. Neptune being retrograde in the second house could very much be the time of like thinking what is real, what is not real, what is worth spending money on, what is not, what kind of bad habits you have when it comes to finances, how can you streamline your resources in order to help you get to where you're trying to go. We have a new moon in Gemini, your fifth house, between June 17th, 18th. It's going to square Neptune in the second. So here we still have some confusion when it comes to money, when it comes to values potentially, and there's a new moon in the fifth house that is saying that you want to start a new relationship, you want to start a new project, you want to have more joy, have more fun. But before you do so, you potentially need to resolve the financial questions, right? Something I was just talking about with Saturn being retrograde. Because it's literally, this new moon in Gemini is literally happening around the time Saturn stations retrograde. So maybe you are wanting to pursue a passion project, but you need to figure out how to have the money you need, because perhaps you have money, but it keeps going in all the different directions, bills, children, dates, etc. So you sort of, you still, this new moon definitely is all about having more fun, starting new things, but needing to be mindful with finances. There can also be a romantic new beginning, but the square to Neptune in the second makes me feel like, you're like starting to date someone, but they have no money, and you sort of close your eyes on it and don't discuss it, or you're reconnecting with your ex, but the issue of finances is still there, and you're sort of driven by the passion of the moment, not discussing the previous problems. So make sure you talk about things. Finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your sixth house, on June 21st, and Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th. This could be the time when you're more driven to take care of your health, to work on projects and nurture people in your life that need care, that you love very deeply, and just an overall sense of like needing to do spring cleaning, needing to examine your surroundings and make better changes. If you'd like a personal horoscope for the month of June, where I break down a lot more transits and take a look at your natal chart and describe what's going on there, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, for your personal monthly horoscope, written and emailed to you in the beginning of every month. Save the best for last, as someone encouraged me to say recently. Let's talk about Pisces, rising specifically, but you can also listen if it's your sun or moon. So Pisces risings, the sun is in Gemini, your fourth house, most of the month until June 21st. Mercury enters Gemini on June 11th for 2 weeks. So Mercury in Gemini is fast, it's curious, it's intelligent. So you may experience most of the month, right? Like you may experience more time spend with family, maybe connecting them with them more, maybe making more changes in the home. For some of you, you may even move or bring some kind of new element, like maybe new tech into your home. Definitely making changes, definitely making improvements, definitely like shuffling things around in the home and talking to family members more. On June 3rd, we have a full moon in your house of career, status, and reputation, which completes a 6 months long chapter. Take a look at what was started in your professional life about 6 months ago, and you can get some answers, right? If you've applied for a job, maybe you get the job. If you started a job, maybe you decide to quit the job. It is ruled by Jupiter in the 3rd house. Jupiter just went into Taurus on May 16th for a full year. Jupiter in Taurus wants you to start new projects that are aligned with your interests. It wants you to communicate. It wants you to rethink your everyday life, right? How you do your chores, how you do your work, how you do your relationships is very much up for a change. It could also be the time when you're starting a business, where you're becoming a teacher, where you're starting a blog, you're learning new skills very much. And so this full moon in Sagittarius on June 3rd, to me, feels like you're making professional changes in accordance to that. And they, 10th house is also your status. It's like, what are you known for? So if you're not working, it could be about becoming a parent, right? It could be about becoming a president of the board or something. What is exciting to you? What do you want to talk about with Jupiter in the 3rd house? So full moon can bring, new horizons professionally, leaving one project, getting ready for another, kind of completing a chapter of growth, being ready to present your ideas, anything like that, right? Like with your 10th house being a Sagittarius, you're naturally someone who is good at inspiring people and being like a teacher or a guide. So maybe you're getting more aligned with that inner calling, inner purpose. And let me know how this resonates in the comments below. I'd love to know. There is a square to Saturn in the 1st. So you may have to deal with yourself and see how you're standing in your own way. You may have to deal with health issues that are making things more complicated. I'm dating a Pisces rising, and he's, messed up his knee about 2 months ago, and he's about to get his surgery. So there's definitely physical body limitations that he's facing. So, there might be some restrictions there, but the full moon also trines Mars in the 6th. So I think you are willing to take action to improve your health, to improve your everyday life. So just kind of looking at your health, looking at your desires, and looking at your immediate environment, at how you can take steps towards bettering your health and bettering your life so it's more aligned with your goals. Venus enters Leo, your 6th house, on June 5th. Venus goes into Leo on June 5th. We'll stay here for 4 months because it goes retrograde in late July into September. Just a sec. So Venus goes into the 6th house. Mars is already in your 6th house since May 20th. There could have been more frustrations connected to your work, to your everyday life. Maybe you've had to hustle more, but didn't feel much recognition or gratification. Now that Venus is here, she will make things a bit easier, right? If there is any health issues you're dealing with, Venus can make them easier to solve. It can also encourage you to connect with better doctors. It can improve your relationship with colleagues. It can improve your everyday life, and also sort of suggest ways of making things better, right? Like listening to music, finding a book that you like to read while you're in line or in traffic, and just kind of positive little changes that you can make easily. The retrograde in late July, more on that next month, will potentially make you rethink some of your habits and some of your everyday life commitments. Pluto retrogrades into Capricorn, your 11th house, on June 11th for the next 6 months. So Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. We had this quick dip into Aquarius between late March and June 11th. Now it's back in your 11th house. So to me, this feels like a need to rethink your friendships, to rethink your connections and people you belong with. Maybe you need more friends. Maybe you need friends that are more aligned with your goals. Maybe you need to get out of your comfort zone and actually reach out to people and ask for their support. Maybe even, even kind of Pluto will be very much about inner, especially since it's retrograde, it will be like about inner blockages and maybe fears connected to friendships or connected to reaching out to people. Do not be afraid. Do not hesitate to ask for help. Saturn goes retrograde in your first house on June 17th, and Neptune goes retrograde here on June 30th. And this could be a bit frustrating, right? Like if you're dealing with personal projects, if you're building towards something, if you're working on your health, if you're improving your look, you're exercising, this might be like the time when you hit a wall and kind of face more delays to those personal gains, to those health pursuits. Could also be the time when you're facing inner tension and inner kind of fears related to growth and expansion, and maybe a sense of needing to like examine how you present yourself in real life and how you show up, right? It's very much like Saturn in the first house for the next 2.5 years wants you to take responsibility for your life and for your choices and for your role in the collective. But when it goes retrograde, it becomes a little bit harder. And that urge to make important decisions becomes stronger. So you may, with Neptune, especially retrograde here, you may need to take a closer look and see what kind of habits you have that are holding you back, to see what kind of fantasies you're pursuing that are not realistic, and what kind of bad habits you have that need to be released. We have a new moon in Gemini between June 17th, 18th in your 4th house, which is a sign of new beginnings related to home, family, and living situation. Maybe you're moving, maybe you're starting a family, welcoming a child, or if you are, let me know. Maybe you are, reconnecting with family. There's a square to Neptune in the 1st house, so I would examine your tendency to play a victim, if you have that, or your tendency to sacrifice for other people. And maybe this new moon is your chance to start again and to build a sense of family. It could be like with Pluto in your 11th house, maybe it's your chosen family, to choose people differently, to kind of build more equal and stable relationships. And finally, the Sun enters Cancer, your 5th house, on June 21st, and Mercury enters Cancer on June 26th until July 11th. And this is your 5th house. It's the place of joy, creativity, romance, and children. So you can experience a fresh burst of energy to create something. Maybe you're sharing stories of children, right? Maybe you are spending more time with your child, getting inspired by them. Maybe you're dating more and having a good time. I like it. If you'd like a personal horoscope and if you'd like me to take a look at your natal chart to see what's ahead for you specifically in June and give you advice, you can become a subscriber on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, to receive monthly horoscopes written down, sent to your email in the beginning of every month. And this is it. This was June, as always, a very long video. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, say hello. If you're not here, I love you anyways, but I'm sad a little bit that you're not here. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you have a great June. Talk to you soon. Bye.